Hello, this is Matthew Chan.
And I'm Tony Centavo.
And welcome to the new episode of TurnKey Publishing. In this episode, we're going to talk about the subject of ebooks.
Ebooks, yes.
Okay, to date, with our prior episodes, we have mentioned it once or twice, but we have never really gotten into it. And so for the very first time, we're going to talk about the issue of ebooks. Now, just to set things up, this is not going to be a technical discussion. That may come a little bit later, but for now, we're going to share our opinions on ebooks and just open up the dialogue. So, yeah. Tony, what do you think of when you think about ebooks?
Well,
what's your first impressions?
my first impression is that I've never read an ebook on a Kindle, but I've downloaded a bunch of ebooks on my computer, and
well, it works.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm getting to technology is changing, and you and I had a conversation weeks ago that there's going to be a whole generation that is coming onto the scene of being consumers of books who, they've got all these different mechanisms for being able to read that are certainly new to the generation that we're in. So I think that ebooks are the wave of the future, where the platform that people have, whether it be a smartphone, an iPad, or whatever, is going to be the means of reading and accessing the information, and the physical notion of a book. I've got this pad right here. Is going to become less of what people associate with the word book. Right. I mean, the word book might even go away and retain the E part.
Yeah, it is very much changing a lot, just as you said. Now, let me just, before we get into the discussion, I do have a bias. Okay. And my, big shock, right?
I've never known him not to have a bias. It just depends on which bias we're talking.
Exactly. So my bias is that with ebooks, despite me being a technology freak, and I love my toys, my gadgets, I still love traditional books. As a customer, I still want that reading experience
and
to
so
this day.
Yes, so do I. But now, let's go 20 years into the future. Let's say, I have adult kids, but let's say my grandkids.
Right, I understand.
We'll have a whole different, because what they start off with is going to be something very different,
I think you're right. I think we were brought up in the generation of the books, and even though we may be embracing the technology, I know I certainly am. I do a lot of reading online, don't get me wrong. But there's something still very appealing for me with a book. There's something very tangible, especially if it's a subject. See, like, for example, like news and newspapers. There's no question in my mind. I really prefer the online version than a nasty newspaper.
Yes.
I hate that crinkly, and I hate the smell. I hate it. You get your hands dirty. I hate the whole real life experience of newspapers. Mm-hmm. So in that particular scenario, I prefer my information on screen. Okay, but yet the book, it's a little bit different, and I think because of the quality of traditional publishing.
Yes.
I beat up on traditional publishing a lot, and yet I'm still a customer.
Yeah.
Although that is probably slowing down over time, but still, I still like to check out a good book or buy a book. Versus, even though the ebook may be less expensive.
Well,
isn't that funny?
That is absolutely the case for me as well. And just recently here, and I'm sure it's been more than just in our area, that one of the big bookstores closed down, and I was hurt because a lot of times.
You're talking about the Books A Million?
Books A Million.
I just noticed that. When was that closed?
Last week.
I couldn't believe it. I went by there the other day and it was closed.
I would go in there and kill time. Sometimes wander around and maybe 1 out of 10 times wind up buying a book. But the thing is that it was I can't do that online. Not for the same purpose. I guess I could kill time browsing, but there was just something about being in a physical space with all the books and all the choices and things like that. So I might just happen to see something that caught my eye. Things are evolving, because as you were talking a few moments ago, I was thinking, okay, we went from painting on cave walls to then carving things on stone tablets to somebody came up with paper, and then you had the scribes who did the scrolls for the pharaohs and all this other stuff, and then somebody came up, Gutenberg came up with the mass production printing press, and there's always been this evolutionary process that affected how human thought was conveyed outside of direct conversation, and we're in another step in that evolutionary process.
Yeah, ebooks are really, it's really creating a lot of headaches for the traditional publishing industry. And one of the things that they don't like is that the perception, the value proposition of a book is being dramatically cut.
Right.
So, you know, like I'm a big reader of business books, and so the way it usually works is the books come out in hardcover first. So it's anywhere from $20 to $30
Right.
list price. And so what happens, they release it for a little while, maybe a year or two, and then when sales fall off, they release the softcover version, which is somewhat less.
Yes.
Well, the problem is that when Amazon came along with the Kindle, I mean, they started placing all these $20, $30 books, making them available for $9.99.
That's right.
And so it just made people crazy. Now, also, to take it a little bit further, is that there are renegade authors that are not following the rules. And they're crazy enough to price their books like 99 cents or $2.99, $3.99, because they're not necessarily interested in the money that comes from the sales of the book.
Okay.
They're interested in growing their readership.
Oh, okay. All right.
You know,
so it becomes
I mean,
a form of paid for advertising in some small sense.
That's one way to look at
Okay.
it, but there's also another way of looking at it is that if you have a readership base, a large readership base that's introduced to you, then you make your money on the future products.
Yes.
So there's a lot of schools of thought, but the bottom line is the traditional publishing industry, they hate that.
Yeah,
They
I'm
don't
sure.
want to see a whole bunch of books that are priced $4.99 and less. As a matter of fact, I uploaded my book, The Intrepid Way, for $4.99.
Is that right?
Yeah, and which the cover price is $17.95.
Wow.
Well, except that since I uploaded it, I'm thinking the price is still too high. And it occurred to me that the income from the book, at least at this point, is not that important to me. I really want the readership, and
Okay.
I really want to move people and to share the ideas. And I tend to believe that, you know, once the readership is there, what they call the platform, then you can actually do something meaningful to it.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you some business questions.
Sure.
In very broad, general sense, what
Yeah.
are the, I guess, the business pragmatics here? What are the revenue elements in terms of, say, what you feel that you net after all costs associated with a physical book versus what you anticipate being the case with the ebook?
Right. Well, it depends on the vendor you use. Like, for example, Amazon and the Kindle, they have one way of doing it. Now, there's another ebook vendor, I guess for a lack of a better term, is called Smashwords. And a lot of people have never heard of Smashwords.
I had. No.
Right. And I had heard about it, but I never thought much about it. I said, what the heck is a Smashword? And yet, they are a fairly prominent player. And as I understand it, the principal of the company came from outside of the publishing industry. And so he has a whole different idea of how the royalty system works. And I think he
Okay.
pays out, and don't hold me to this, I believe he pays out like 60-70% to the author, whereas Amazon, they take a bigger take.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
I mean, obviously, you know, they have an investment in the Kindle device,
Right.
and the Amazon infrastructure is certainly much more popular than Smashwords. But make no mistake, Smashwords is coming on fairly strong because they're creating alliances with so many different resellers. And not only are they doing that, is that they're making these their ebooks supportable on multiple platforms.
Okay.
So you can download PDF, you can download it into the Windows phones, you can download it to the iPhones. I mean, and I think they will even export it over to the Kindle. So they're doing it multi-platform, which is very, very different from
Right.
Amazon's strategy.
And with that being said, off camera, we were talking about, well, excuse me, this was a whole nother conversation I had with someone else about devices becoming less important than the access to the information. So,
Right.
for example, you just said that if I have access from any of those different devices that you just mentioned, it doesn't matter. I mean, I might have all three. I might have my smartphone on me, where I'm out and about, but then, I'm stuck on a subway train or something like that. I can whip out my Kindle, which is fairly, pocket-sized device, or I might be sitting in an airport with my notebook computer up, and I want to be able to get to this book I've been working on. So between the three devices on my transit, I've been able to use different tools to get to the same read.
It's that is exactly right. It's really amazing. I mean, even Amazon, they had to break down. So there's a Kindle reader for the PC, for your smartphones.
Or an app that you can download.
Oh yeah, okay. Exactly. So when you buy that one book, most people, at least as far as I know, they start off on the computer. Mm-hmm. But just like you said, I mean, there may be people, riding in trains or a plane or whatever, and they may not want to carry their Kindle or
mm-hmm.
or their iPad. They may just want to read off their phone.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but it's all in a centralized place,
Well, let me going back to your bias. Mm-hmm. What do you think? I mean, just your personal opinion. Thinking about the future of publishing, since this is the publishing discussion. How is the evolution of the book going to change and the publishing industry?
Well, I think the costs are going to be dramatically lower. I mean, traditional publishers are running scared right now.
Yeah.
Because really, authors, there's a huge group of authors, or would-be authors, mm-hmm. that don't care about the traditionalists. Okay, now I have a love of books. I still have this love of the sex appeal of having my book on the bookshelf.
Right.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you, there is a group of people, they don't care about that.
Yeah.
They just simply want to put their work out there online, and they just want to sell it and get the readership out there. So, but having said that, I don't think books will ever totally go away. And the reason why I don't think that is that there is a need for it. I mean, I guess there may come a day where all of us old timers may die off, but I think it's going to be a long time for now. But I think it was Seth Godin that mentioned it, that it's an artifact. It's mm-hmm. like a souvenir. So people get the book because it's a souvenir, not necessarily because of the words or the information. It isn't like news and newspaper. I mean, the news is the news for that one day, but all of a sudden, if it's 2-3 days, it's old.
That's
so it's
true.
disposable.
Mm-hmm.
But the book is generally about a theme or a group of ideas, and and people want to preserve that. So there are certain people like myself that I won't resell certain books.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to keep it on my shelf, and it has special meaning to me. It's just something that I will pull and reread or reference. And so, but having said that, I do think that the ebook revolution is on. And I've been sort of on the fence because I'm not even sure how I'm going to respond to it. But I've just come to the fact, at least at my stage of my career, that mm-hmm. building a platform is important and getting my ideas out is important. And the money sort of comes later.
Mm-hmm. Well, going back to what you were saying about, here is one of the few times I may fundamentally disagree with Matthew in the sense that
that's fine.
He said that books will probably never go away, and I was thinking that I said, okay, we don't write on stone tablets anymore. We don't do scrolls anymore. We don't do floppy disk anymore. I mean, we're going away from even putting CDs and things. I mean, everything's pretty much now gotten to be a downloadable, thumb drivable, for data type of thing. The artifact point was the thing that I kind of got stuck on. I said, we do like to remember and archive things on that becomes personal. So I said, that may be the saving grace of the physical book. That human, but then when this generation, 2 generations, 3 generations goes where they've had these different means and methods of accessing information, that sense of connectivity to the book may be just as much as I don't have any scrolls around my house. I mean, if you follow,
that's true.
You know what I'm saying? This is how we feel here and now, and every change in human life span is always something that happens over a series of of generations, where someone fundamentally either becomes unfamiliar with one form or rejects it, and they favor it for very pragmatic reasons. And I think that the information age, which I'm not sure what will come next, is epitomized by convenience and ready access to information because, that's, people expect to, like, people don't even go look. I've got 2 or 3 dictionaries at home. But now if I want to know the meaning, me, 50 years old, want to know the meaning of a word, I Google it. Because
Yeah,
the
but
words I want to know that didn't exist when they put it in the book. You follow?
Well, except that no one has an attachment to a dictionary.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I'm sure.
A dictionary is sort of.
But just think,
when
the
you
classics like Mark Twain's Tom Sawyer.
Well, that's true. That is true.
Where people, the first time they ever read these classics, the stories have not changed. The value of where they captured time in American or global history and stuff. But if the first time I read this is on an ebook as a 13-year-old in school, I might cherish it to death. But that's where I know I can log on anytime. Boom, there it is.
Tony, I don't profess to say, and I have a strong opinion on many issues. Okay, this is one of these issues. This is one of these issues where I don't have a super strong opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you ask me a question, I feel that it's going to be with us for a while, but by virtue of there's a lot of us old timers.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm becoming an old timer myself. And so, by virtue of that, the books will be around. Now, you're talking about 3 generations down the line. Who knows?
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I'm not even thinking that far, because, and I'll tell you why. Because it's irrelevant. Because at least from my point of view, regardless of my personal tastes, I'm a pragmatic person, and so going forward, everything that I do, even though I have, let me back this up a little bit. Even though I have books in print,
Yes.
make no mistake, there is a digital version that came before that.
Okay.
The text had to be typed up,
Right.
and it had to be assembled, and I've got those master files. So really, for me, all I have to do is convert those master files into the Kindle format or whatever happens to be the popular format. So I may like the print, but at the heart of it,
Right.
it is a digital format.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Whereas the old days, I mean, there was old style
Typesetting,
typesetting.
yeah.
Right, exactly. It was very manually based. Or it was the manuscript was on a typewriter,
Mm-hmm. That's true.
typewritten pages. So by virtue of my source files being digital, I feel like, if everything goes, pure digital, fine.
Yeah.
And if there happens to be a hybrid approach where the books and the ebooks continue to coexist for many years to come, then so be it.
Well, this brings up another point that might make for another episode. The idea of publishers may be a dying notion as well, because functionally, if everyone, because we talked on a previous episode about blogs and all the different things that could be considered published work, if we just kept it to the notion that someone was able to retain intellectual property rights, there's basically been a very much the bypassing of the formal
It's the middleman.
processes of a middleman to be able to distribute your ideas on a mass basis and create the value that got you compensated, whatever form of compensation you may have considered.
Tony, that's exactly why I started the publishing business, got into it years ago.
Mhm.
I mean, I was already thinking about this back in 2000, when my original concept was to put booklets. Because, back then there was Kinko's. Some of you, Kinko's don't really exist if it's been bought out by Federal Express,
Right,
but back then Kinko's was around, and they were able to assemble booklets. And because the limiting factor was the printing issue. It was just tough as nails to get past back in 2000. But it was only around 2002, 2003, when I really got serious and looking at it, I said, okay, it's still not an easy hurdle to overcome, but it is doable.
Right.
We were at that cusp.
Mm-hmm.
But that's exactly why I got into it, because I did not want to go through a middleman. And I think a lot of people who are content providers, authors, or potential authors, such as yourself,
Yeah.
you do not want to go through a middleman. You want to get your stuff out to the masses as soon as possible, with as little grief as possible.
That's true. That's
and
true.
without somebody, taking a big take out of you.
Well, I guess from the standpoint of what you just said and kind of gave the, 10-year history of it, you're the leader of the revolution.
Well, no, I wouldn't go that far. You may think so,
The original
but
Paul Revere of...
no, No, there's plenty of
non-traditional
self-publishers. There have been publishers, self-publishers, even that started even way before I did, and I was a beneficiary of their works, you know. So,
Yeah.
like Dan Poynter, he's a pioneer, and I read his books. I mean, there was like 2 or 3 books that I actually read. So there were certainly people that was ahead of me. But what the difference is that what I brought,
internet show.
the difference that I brought is I brought a lot of the new technologies and I
Okay.
incorporated it. You know, whereas a lot of people in traditional publishing, I kind of view them as they use technology, but they're very limited in what they use it for.
Yeah.
And you know, like for example, there's a lot of talk about incorporating videos into text and stuff like that. So, you know, and there's been some stabs at it, but I have not seen anything that has been really that good, that pervasive. So, you know, the ebook thing is it's really up in the air. I think you and I agree that this revolution is on.
Yes, absolutely.
It is very difficult to tell where it's going to end up. I don't think anybody has any clear-cut answers except that they have to get into the ebook game.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to be very interesting because right now, the reason why it's going to be very interesting is now it makes a person like you, who never was exposed to the other side of publishing.
That's right.
It opens up to a whole different realm because you don't have preconceived notions.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you have a whole different view, and it's going to be people like you who were never in it that's going to, I think, really dramatically shake the publishing industry to its core. I mean, there are far more people that don't know about the publishing business than the people that do.
That's true. Absolutely.
And they're going to vote with where they put their money. They're not going to give their money or give their assets to some publisher.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to want to be told what they can and can't publish. You're going to decide what.
Yeah.
You're not going to have some person in New York say, you know what, I don't think your book is suited for the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, and that's what has happened up until the current times when you had to go through the traditional route to get your books printed and distributed through the formal publishing channel. So it's interesting as times change and means and methods and technology change so rapidly. The good thing for you out there as viewers is you're getting introduced to cutting edge ideas and thoughts that might challenge your preconceptions as well as open your mind to opportunities that you can be a part of this new wave that Matthew has certainly been an important player in, even though he so modestly says he's not a leader of revolution, but he's my Fidel Castro as far as this is concerned. So
Fidel Castro,
the leader of the revolution, man.
Oh, okay.
My lifetime, anyway. All those was old.
Oh, I don't know. Well, Fidel Castro, we chose some, but I get your sentiment. Well, the one thing I do want to leave our audiences, and we probably will talk about ebooks on a future episode.
Okay.
But some of you may be thinking to yourself the technical aspects of it, and I just want to leave like a couple of sentences for you. It's gotten to the point where if you can just get the words on the paper in a Microsoft Word document, that's about all it's going to take to become an ebook. I mean, that's because really the technical aspect is becoming less and less of an issue where you can actually pay someone fairly inexpensively, $69 or even less, to have it converted for you.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there is a conversion cost now, but I definitely foresee a day where things are going to move so far along. It's as simple as us typing Microsoft Word or whatever the equivalent is, and that will be the publishing process, and then email or upload it.
Yep.
So there you go.
There we go.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking the time to join Tony and I in this episode in our discussion of ebooks, and we hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in our next episode.
All right, see you later.